Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Dan, the voice behind that Kaito Dan, and welcome to my review for RWBY Volume 8 Episode 2, Refuge. Also, happy 7th birthday for the channel, even though I've actually been doing YouTube stuff since 2007. Good God, I'm old. But regardless, before we get started, as always, please make sure you watch this episode first through roosterteeth.com to support the show and avoid spoilers. While you're at it, please go make sure you check out my reaction to the Volume 8 premiere right now if you haven't yet, through the links in the description and the card above. And we start things off right away with the first viewer comment section of these Volume 8 reviews, as well as the first fan art showcase, which you can find all the links for the art in the description down below as well. One question from the last review was over what hairstyle for winter was your favourite, and a lot of you said hair down winter, which I can't deny it is a pretty good look on her. But we also had Imagination Circus Productions who said they dig Winter's new ponytail, and also noted how excited they are now that Ozpin is back. Meanwhile, a lot of comments in general were focused on, well, the general. Stoneman even sharing their surprise at the outcome of his handling of the councilman, while Leo Archon summed up the general's current mindset quite well, on top of noting the rising concern over what he may recruit Watts to do. Remember, if you want to try and get your comment or fan art featured in the next episode review, go share them in the comments down below or hit me up on Twitter with the correct links to your artwork, and tune in next week to see if anything from you gets featured. So, said premiere definitely left its mark as Volume 8 kicked off in promising form. We got plenty of seeds being planted for all manner of tasty arcs and drama set to flourish over the next batch of episodes. And one moment in particular definitely set the mood for what's said to be a super tense season. With our heroes now looking to kill two birds with one stone, how did both sides cope with the less than favourable manner of their split? And how did this episode do its best to measure up to such a striking opening act? Let's find out. We open with quite a body blow to the feels box as we finally check in on Crow, who's still nursing the guilt and sadness over Clover's death. And though Robin in her cell is spouting off some rather sour comments about this all being his fault, it's actually directed at Jacques, not Crow. Though I suspect hearing such comments in any kind of context isn't exactly helping Crow's mood get any better. And yes, Jackass himself is their prison neighbour, who even now is playing the victim card. At least when Weiss said the same in Volume 1, it felt somewhat genuine, but here, nah, it's just the arrogant bugger trying to pass the buck off on someone else. Even saying while he admits he's not the most honourable of sort, at least he's not a murderer like Crow, even with Robin defending him. Dick. There's also one other jailbird in the nest, Dr. Watts, who's still nursing some bruises from his fight with Ironwood, and knowing all too well that Salem is here, looks quite content for a criminal in a cage. Speaking of the cage, I do like this prison, and how those behind the scene really sell the gloom of being stuck in nothing but a dark, quiet room, only lit up by the glow of the hard light dust walls. It's a depressing sight that further elevates the downtrodden mood of the cast, even with Jacques acting all smug, thinking it's only a matter of time until Whitley springs him loose with the help of the family's lawyers. I know some people feel a bit miffed that underneath all that bravado and intimidation, he's actually a cowardly rich douche canoe, but I personally like that Jacques is a different kind of enemy than the actual devious and ill-intentioned villains of the series. Someone whose only might was his money, his status, and the emotional turmoil that he put his family through, providing a different kind of conflict to be overcome. And should Whitley come to his father's rescue, I'm curious to see how desperate Jacques will be in his efforts to reclaim that position. We then see some soldiers arrive and swiftly knock out Watts before dragging him away, which really lent itself to Ironwood possibly pressuring Watts into either spilling some details on Salem's plans, not really that likely I bet, or the more troubling prospect that is teased in the intro, using his past ties as part of the Penny team to find a way to hack the Robo-Girl and bring her back to Atlas by force. What's also troubling is Crow's response to Robin venting her frustrations over not being able to do anything at the moment, by saying what they can do is kill the person who put them here, i.e. Ironwood. Now, there's definitely room to explain why Ironwood may need to be killed to stop him from truly dooming humanity, and whether or not it will actually come to that, we don't know just yet. But remember, Crow left his bandit home because he hated their lifestyle that welcomed killing others, and he only really intended to do so afterwards if it was for just reasons, like when he protected his niece from Tyrion. Now though, he's willingly intending to kill Ironwood, not to stop him from damning the world to defeat at Salem's hands or to free him from his downward spiral, but solely out of the need for vengeance. And that's a path that can turn him into someone he normally would detest becoming. I think it's funny that he's sharing jail time with Robin right now, cause this makes me think of another character that's portrayed by her voice actress Christina Valenzuela, that being Velvet Crow from Tales of Berseria. Without going into major spoilers, the crux of her story was a desire for vengeance on the person that wronged her, going from a regular kind girl to a cold, bitter monster of a woman that would go through anything and anyone just to get her revenge, until ultimately she learns the flaws in her desire and with the help of the other people in her party, learns to balance her guilt and rage for a better intended path of payback. That's a similar route that I see Crow facing in his future, where he's so driven to kill Ironwood simply for misguided and enraged vengeance that he slowly edges closer into becoming someone he's not, and he may only be able to come to his senses with the help of someone like Robin or his nieces. Maybe even Raven too, if she and Ty pop up. Even if they don't, this could also help Crow finally learn to compose the guilt and remorse that was already weighing on his heart in regards to his old teammates in the process. And maybe I'm wide of the mark here, but that's still the vibe that I'm getting, and no matter what, I'm still excited to see what his new intentions could lead, conflict-wise, especially when he's still trying to rebuild his life for the better. After that, we head on down to Mantle, where we catch the evacuations taking place, and Joanna making use of the nearby reporting to help spread the message, as we also see Team Joyride arrive at Pietro's pharmacy to pick up his latest project, the Rhino hoverbikes that we've seen in the previews, as well as some additional tools that we'll see over the episode, such as a nifty little shield generator. I think having some of these tools would be a great addition to Jean's arsenal to help his usefulness in combat expand even more, as with even his welcome upgrades to his sword and shield, it'd be nice to see Jean have something that can help him out at long range, even if it is just using these insta-shields as a means of extra defense or some trapping. It's then time to shepherd this group of civvies into the crater, but some of them, most notably this old lady, isn't quite fond of being forced to evacuate into the slums over Atlas, especially with the animals living there, obviously meaning the Faunus. After Volume 7 really only had one tame example of Atlas's racial conflict, I do hope we get more like this in this volume, as it'd be a waste to miss out on exploring that aspect, especially when the kingdom definitely needs to be united right now. Yet we got folks like this woman, whose prejudice is so strong, it's blinding her from seeing how Atlas, as Yang points out, pretty much left the rest of Mantle high and dry, while the Faunus are willing to welcome those left behind, even if they don't deserve it. It didn't completely make the old lady realize her mistake, since we hear her still be sour over Yang's stern telling off later on, but it's at least a rather realistic response. And we also see later on some interaction between this woman and some Faunus, which, who knows, maybe come the end of the volume we'll get a positive update on. Though yeah, this is a bit of a sad reminder that it's not going to be easy to get people to cooperate, even in the most dire of circumstances. Boy, ain't that the truth. This realization saddens Oscar, as well as Ozpin, whose commentary isn't exactly welcomed right now by the farm boy, and not for the reasons that Ozpin first believes. As he apologizes for having ran away from his roasting in Volume 6 and leaving Oscar to take the fall in his stead, Oscar clarifies that he's not upset that Ozpin left, he's upset that Ozpin came back. See, the poor lad was finally starting to feel like the kind of person he always hoped he could become. Someone who had a purpose beyond just being a farmhand, that maybe he could help those in need. And after a bit of a rough patch, he finally felt like part of the team, not just an extra. His opinions and involvement finally being valued for himself, not who he's tied to. He was feeling positive about his place in life for the first time since Ozpin became bonded to him. Only now for Ozpins Return to remind him of his fate. And though both of them don't wish it to happen, they are still on course for their souls to become one, the more Oscar continues to gain more of Ozpin's power and memories. It's so great to finally hear more of Oscar's feelings on his fate, after he claimed he was willing to embrace it back in August, and it's very compelling stuff too. After such a strong volume last time out where he was an integral character that was able to stand his own ground and play a key role alongside the others, having that positive mood show cracks again right at the moment that Ozpin comes back is a logical response that further drives home just how even such strong progress for Oscar comes with that tragic double-edged sword aspect that I really do love in these kind of situations. I also appreciated that Ozpin did try to apologize for abandoning him, and he remains sympathetic for Oscar's plight. And I hope that now both of them are starting to be more honest with each other, this could be a hopeful step forward for their bond, with Oscar trying his best to still do what he can by his own choice, and Ozpin watching out for the lad, not just because he's his newest life, but because he genuinely cares about his well-being. There's one other concerning issue amongst the group though, as Ren, who has been cloaking the group's negative emotions with Jean's aid, is starting to lose focus, and gets a tad snappy when Jean tries to rally him on. Earlier, he was looking rather reluctant to use his semblance, as the lad continues to not address his unbalanced feelings, and now we got a clear-cut visual example of Ren's self-defeating mindset, with his ability to mask emotions starting to fail, the more that he willingly does so with his own mixed feelings. Sooner or later, he's either gonna need someone to sit him down and finally make him see sense, or his continued efforts to focus on just the mission over his own mental struggles is gonna cause something to go wrong, further making him panic and then cast aside more of his feelings, which will then, with the raged death flags going on right now for him, is a worrying thought. But damn if it doesn't help me keep invested all the same, hoping that something is able to break through his shell before it's too late. We then go over to the slums and we see the mass amount of people still in danger the longer they're kept in Mantle. The place is starting to pack up big time, and the condition of the place is less than pleasing, somehow looking worse than Mantle is by comparison to the finer life of Atlas. All the more reason then why the heroes need to get the word out to the rest of the world quick, so these lot can get the help they need before it's too late. We also see that May has joined RWBY's team, and she shares how Robin was quite eager to see Amity Tower being used to signal the rest of the world, which I'm sure for Blake especially is very happy hearing, proving to herself that even with some of the drawbacks to her and Yang letting in Robin on those plans, this is some good that's coming from this decision. Still, it doesn't stop her and Nora from turning rather glum at the mention of their friends, the sting of being apart in more ways than one still fresh in their minds. But for now, they must press on. Thus, we're introduced to Weiss's idea for getting up to Atlas, the Snowshoe Shipping Distribution, a subsidiary owned by the SDC that ships refined dust through the tubes connected to Atlas. We also get a rather charming little joke from Blake teasing Weiss over her family's monopoly over the kingdom, which makes for a nice little bit of light-hearted comfort, showing these lot are still trying to keep their spirits high in spite of the bleakness clouding over them. Speaking of keeping spirits high, Ruby comes to comfort Penny as she expresses some sadness seeing friends fight. But she's not referring to Ruby and Yang, she's actually meaning all of them, and Ironwood and Winter being at odds with each other. She was as close with these two as the group she's with now, and it tears Penny apart, not like that, to see them as the other side, when Penny wishes that they were all on the same side. Even more so with Ironwood's comments that if Salem breaks through the city, the deaths that will follow will be Penny's fault. Ruby hears this and tells Penny that those were just mean-spirited words meant to weaken her spirit and force her to go back to the general, but even so, those words still do hurt the poor girl to her core, especially because she still thinks of herself as the protector of Mantle. Yet she's now the Winter Maiden as well, that new power burdening her with newfound pressure and importance that ultimately she genuinely wishes she didn't have to bear. This is the kind of internal conflict drama that made me really glad Penny came back, and that she also became the Winter Maiden, as we've not explored someone trying to deal with having that mighty power on their shoulders, the closest being the talks about becoming a maiden from Pyrrha and Winter. It also meshes very well with the continued arc of Penny trying to understand these emotions inside her as she balances wanting to be seen as a real girl, not a weapon, or in this case, a magical protector. Before, you could perhaps see the balance of that conflict being fairly stable, no real one side winning out. But now Penny has such power and plenty to make her second guess siding against Ironwood, it's tipping her worries into thinking that her hopes of being seen as a normal girl is fruitless. Kinda like how Oscar and his battle for self-identity versus fate is going on, only with more of a pressing focus on Penny battling what her heart and her head is telling her the right thing is to do. It's emotionally high-strung content that has me hooked to every scene she's in so far. Doubly so when Ruby's efforts to ease her concerns doesn't get the same response as when these two had a similar discussion back in Volume 2. Penny definitely does appreciate the comments that she did keep Mantle safe in the end by taking the power, but as you can see when Ruby hugs her, she doesn't return the gesture, nor does she smile, showing this has only tempered the flames of her issue, not put it out, and color me eager to see more of this tug of war inside Penny's heart as the volume carries on. Well, that was rather heartbreaking stuff. What about some chuckles then to counter it, with the funniest moment in this series for some time. I know I'm not alone in saying this, but watching Weiss get Futurama'd up into the pipes by Nora was all kinds of funny. The setup, the building realization of what's about to happen, Kara's excellent screaming when she goes flying, and the few seconds of no response until Nora starts chuckling in just pure glee, it's pure comedic gold that just had me in stitches anytime I've watched it. Back in the slums, we see more of the Happy Huntresses doing fine work even without their leader, as Joanna returns to see Fiona taking charge of the support management quite well. I really dig that not only have we seen plenty of the remaining trio helping out where they can, even without Robin, but we've also got moments like these where we can flesh them out into more worthwhile characters, and explore their camaraderie amongst themselves and with the main cast. It's good moments that helps the trio cement a more important marker of impact in the story without just being seen as Robin's allies, and their interaction shows a lot of likable charm to each of them, Fiona especially, whose cuteness really shines when she's bouncing a little when praising Yang's squad for their evacuation efforts. She does push the teammates button though, you know, the little sensitive topic right now, which accidentally dampens the good vibes a little, even sending Ren off for a sulk. But all the same, things are looking good so far for the evacuation, you know, barring a few fights here or there, amongst some of the less peaceful types of this mixed community. Also, hey there Hans, glad to see you again, and it turns out that not only is he voiced by RT staple Gus Sorolla, he's also Fiona's uncle. Neat. Also, I love that Oscar gave him a little wave. It's one of many little details in this episode that just adds a bit more character to some aspects that does put a smile on my face, like the Happy Huntresses rebranding an Atlas military tent, or Fiona's sheep ear raising up a little when she gets a call about more grim attacks. Heck, even the rather depressing visual of a stepped-on plush toy worked really well as an additional trimming to that scene, embodying Oscar's crushed innocence in this example. Background details and small character animations like this go a long way in further making these have some liveliness to them, and a bit more of an awareness to the emotions at play, which I'm all for. Anyway, back on track, the Yang Gang get back in action once more, taking out a T-Rex with another Pietro tool, some kind of gust grenade, that slams it into a bridge and leaves it wide open for Jean to finish the job. A cool example as well that even with this unique squad roster, these guys have all fought together long enough to still have some effective teamwork and understanding. But they have also been put through the ringer as of late, and with the endless amount of negativity still swarming the city, the gang can't rest just yet as the Grim won't stop coming. Until they do, as the next swarm suddenly turns tail after spotting something in the distance. Said something then lunges out of the blue onto Oscar and just straight up brutalizes the poor kid, tossing him around like a dog with its chew toy. The close-up camera, Oscar's desperate kicks and pleas, and the intense music also really helping sell this vicious onslaught, before the beast swiftly breaks Oscar's aura, knocking him out cold, and we get our first clear shot of the monster that Salem has unleashed. Ladies and gentlemen, say hello to the Hound. A ferocious canine that, if you've paid close attention to the episode, you may have actually seen earlier on, as there's a few scenes where the beast is seen in the background or just quickly passing through the shot as it stalked Oscar until it was time to strike, adding some further terror to this already freaky creature. And that's even before its black oozing body morphs it into a bipedal wolf. Now, a lot of people think that this Hound is actually based on the big bad wolf, or perhaps even the Norse wolf Fenrir. But I believe its real inspiration is, well, a black dog. More specifically, the black dog of UK folklore that is often described as a large, shadowy dog that is seen as an omen of death and, much like Fido here, can shapeshift its appearance. The black dog is a focus of many a tale across the UK, with some even having mention of the word grim, like the fairy Grim that took on the form of a black dog while haunting a prison, or the church Grim that protected graves from vandals or witches. It even inspired the black dog that Sirius Black can turn into in the Harry Potter series, and perhaps the biggest clue to the Hound being based on the black dog creature, it is the titular mysterious entity of the classic Sherlock Holmes story, the Hound of the Baskervilles. Of course, the origins is one thing, what this beast can do is another matter, especially with some of its unique attributes. See, when Yang desperately tries to save Oscar, the Hound uses him as a shield so he can attack when Yang drops her guard, and it can use its ooze body to stretch its limbs when it swipes away Ren's efforts to stop him. This Grim is special indeed, as it strangely has enough intelligence to use tactics, unlike the other Grim that is rather dumb, only really acting based on the negativity that attracts them. And that's not the half of it, because as when Ren demands the Grim to let Oscar go, the Hound tells him no. Yep, this Grim can talk. A moment that I'm sure left many of us as stunned as the trio here, and it instantly made me think of a similar scene in The Rise of the Planet of the Apes or the high-end Nomu from My Hero Academia. Something that shouldn't be able to speak, let alone think on a similar level to humans, and much like the high-end Nomu, is a higher class level of Grim that completely shakes up much of the norms. And I love it. Even if this is the only Grim of its kind, it's the kind of larger threat that the Grim have been needing to provide a fresher challenge than just introducing new breeds. Now we got a Grim that can think, speak, and morph itself into any form it wishes, even a pair of wings that look the same as those seen on Salem in the intro, before the beast flies off with Oscar in tow. and I guess now would be a good time to note some of the prevailing topics of discussions around the Hound, though I'm going to start with a rather simple one. See, a lot of people are calling foul on Jean, Ren, and Yang standing still at various points in this fight while Oscar's in deep trouble, calling them stupid for not helping out sooner, and even saying it could be a botch on the writing side, which, sorry, I don't agree with. For one, it's a common directive approach to often have no other action going on as the scene slowly reveals something to the audience, which is clearly the intent here with the slow camera work leading up to the full shot of the Hound. And then there's the reasonings for the three not reacting sooner. They didn't see the initial attack coming, they have been worn down from not just today's fighting, but all the fighting they've been doing without rest since the Schnee Manor party. They were understandably shocked and frightened at the sudden appearance of such a terrifying beast, not once, but twice when it spoke, and finally, they did try to help, but were clearly unable to make a dent while Oscar was pretty much the Hound's hostage. In a matter of seconds, the Hound outsmarted and outfought the heroes, and the reveal it had intelligence and the ability to speak was such a big shocker it left them paralyzed in shock and fear. This isn't a flaw in the writing, it's a purposeful display of the three being completely out of their element and reacting like pretty much anyone else would in this situation. So I can't agree with those saying that it's the writers messing up or something of the sort. I just think some people need to consider the situation from the point of view of the characters themselves, not just from the point of view as the audience member or what they believe the writer's intentions were. Wow, that got kind of a bit ranty there, my bad. But still, it's something that I think I did need to bring up, as I felt I had to throw my 2 cents in. Especially before I discuss the other big talking point, the possibility that the reason the Hound can speak and have human-like IQ is cause it used to be a human. Grimified humans have been a common fan theory pretty much since the start of the series. People curious about what that could offer to the story, as well as all the potential drama to be had with having a human, once for dead, come back to life. As such, many people think the Hound could be a previously dead character. The most common idea being Summer. Reasons why seem to stem from the long-standing theory that Summer was kept alive by Salem for some reason, as well as the Hound not having any eyes, perhaps as a drawback of Salem maybe robbing Summer of her silver eyes power before turning her into a Grim. Though some have also wondered if someone like Adam or Leo could be the beast as well, but most people seem to be banking on it being Summer, which, understandably, would cause some major dramatic damage if that was revealed with RWBY, Yang, or Crow present. Also, yeah, it is kind of funny that Jason Liebrecht, the voice of Crow, also voices the Hound, but I think that's just because Jason can do these kind of voices, and maybe the crewbie didn't want the usual voice actor of the Grim, William Orendorff, to voice this one too, when it may have just ended up sounding like the voice that he uses as well for Hazel. So, what's my take on this Summer is the Hound theory? Well, I'm hesitant to support it just yet. For one, I think the lack of eyes could just be Salem wanting it to have its strongest sense be its smell, as a tracking hound. And it could even be a way for it to avoid silver eye damage, if perhaps its inability to see the blast can help it survive, though I admit that's a weak defense. The fact that it needed to make a human voice box as well also makes me think that that's just the fact that its human-like elements simply need to be born from a mixture of the black ooze and Salem's magic, and not some human elements of the actual beast. And with so many other humans slain by her forces, why not have all Grim be able to do the same, unless it does take a lot out of Salem to create it. It certainly would throw a major spanner in the works of Huntsman's willingness to kill Grim so easily if they have to wrestle with the fact that it used to be a human soul. But I don't know. I just don't feel so certain that I can trust in this theory just yet without further proof. I wouldn't be against it, that's for sure. that tasty dramatic potential I mentioned before definitely would entice me for some really big moments, but I just need a little bit more stable ground before I'm willing to jump aboard. Nevertheless, the Hound is an absolute game changer of an enemy, and as it flies away with Oscar in its clutches, the episode ends as the trio snap out of their stunned reactions to desperately chase after it. This was such a stellar episode, easily the best out of the two so far in my opinion, as it did so much good in further exploring much of the cast's mixed emotions while progressing the story forward with new conflicts, new world building, and of course, new surprises. That final third was simply flawless in its execution, from its pacing and score to the masterful use of the camera work and emotion in the characters' faces and voices. It definitely helped an already engrossing episode end on a stronger note than the over-promoted cliffhanger that the premiere ended with, because so much of it was built up without issue. Right when these lot were starting to feel the brunt of their internal and external stress, they're swiftly dealt a massive obstacle that strikes them at their weakness and offers plenty of tantalizing talking points even beyond the additional thrill of wondering what will happen next. Simply the perfect debut that the Hound could have had, while ending at just the right time to allow for a more fleshed out chase next episode, instead of trying to cram a shorter one in this one. It's funny then that for an episode filled with a lot of bleak tones and a massive tension-filled climax, this episode also had a lot of positive vibes as well, and entertaining gags that balanced the emotional scale well, so when things did get harrowing, it felt more impactful, going from such highs to such lows. The wife's tube gag is easily going to be people's biggest positive highlight, but I enjoyed a lot of the warm chemistry amongst both sides of the heroes, and even the more somber yet earnest discussions with Penny and Oscar that kept the ball rolling smoothly with their respective conflicts. I also think this was a very strong episode for the Happy Huntresses, as Joanna, May, and Fiona all integrated themselves well with the major cast, and got to, fittingly enough, show their teeth a little, as characters with their own charms, chemistry, and range of emotion, depending on the circumstance. They also kept us from forgetting the plight of those in Mantle with their continued efforts to help out, which will be vital the more we see the heroes start to stretch their focus towards more of the full-on clashes with the villains or Ironwood. And now that we've had enough of the foundations built in checking in with every key player, and the start of several volume-length character arcs, now the volume has ample room to offer us some material that will really start testing the wills of our heroes and the villains alike, with some bigger tests, tougher choices, and harsher emotions, all thanks to one heck of a captivating chapter. And now we come to the episode awards, starting with the character of the episode, or should I say characters, because this is going to Fiona, Joanna, and May. The trio having a fantastic first real go at being notable supporting characters, not just minor faces popping up here or there. We got to see what they're like as a group, with the main lot, and what they're like with each other as singular characters, with their own personalities and quirks, so they all get to share this award. As for the scene of the episode, it's another obvious winner, the debut of the Hound. It was brutal, it was shocking, it was thought-provoking, it was sublime. Best debut of a Grimm by a mile. And finally, the voice acting gold star, I'm gonna give it to Marissa Lenti. She finally got more than one line in the show, and with it, she did a brilliant job at showing not just Joanna's grit, but also her kindness, that really helped her feel more than just the token, no-nonsense tough nut of the group. So, 2 down, 12 to go. We're starting to build a rhythm now with 2 very strong episodes under wraps, and already signs seem to be pointing at this being another volume boasting some massive emotional thrills and big twists set to rock our worlds. If the form keeps up this well, then things are gonna be looking good for the volume, even if the events themselves aren't looking good. Oscar Protection Squad, you definitely have one hell of an episode to look forward to, so roll on out. But what do you think about this episode? What's your take on the Hound and its mysterious layers? What troubles do you think the heroes will face next? And who's your favourite of the remaining happy Huntresses? Let me know in the comments down below, and while you're at it, hit the subscribe and bell buttons and tick the notification box to get every new video from me as they drop. And follow me on Twitter at ThatKaitoDan for more on anything to do with future RWBY videos, updates on the channel, and more. But until next time, have a good day or good night, and peace out.